What if the most human character in fiction isn't human at all? In Hunter x Hunter, there's a being born at the top of the food chain, a king, a predator, a mind designed for absolute dominance. And at first, he acts exactly like you'd expect. He believes strength decides worth. He sees life as a hierarchy that he's at the top of, and he treats humans like they're beneath him. But then something strange happens. He starts to change. And the deeper question isn't just why he changed. It's what the change says about us. Because Meruem doesn't just become more human than humans. He becomes a model of how minds actually evolve. Meruem is born with everything most people spend their lives chasing. Power, intelligence, authority, and certainty. And because of that, he starts with a mindset most people secretly fall into when they gain success. Which is, I already understand how the world works. There's no curiosity, no doubt, and no need to grow. And that's where his real journey begins. Not as a fight against humans, but a fight against stagnation. Psychologically, Meruem starts in a dangerous place. He is never challenged, and when that happens, something subtle forms in the mind. You stop learning, you stop questioning, and you start filtering reality to confirm what you already believe. In real life, this shows up in different ways. People who stop learning after success, people who assume intelligence equals understanding, and people who mistake confidence for truth. Meruem is the extreme version of that. At the start, his worldview is simple. Strong is valuable, and weak is irrelevant. And because he has never been wrong, he assumes he can never be wrong. But then he encounters something he cannot process. Komugi, a human who is physically insignificant, yet repeatedly defeats him in Gungi. This creates a contradiction. If strength defines worth, she shouldn't matter. If intelligence defines worth, she shouldn't exist. But she does both. And this is where growth begins in any mind, when reality stops matching your internal model. In self-improvement terms, this is the moment where your assumptions get challenged by experience. Most people react in two ways. They reject the information, or they update their worldview. Meruem, surprisingly, updates. He doesn't understand Komugi at first, so instead of dismissing her, he does something rare for someone in his position. He stays, he observes, and he learns. And this is where the story becomes something deeper than any fictional show. Because real growth doesn't start with motivation, it starts with humility. The willingness to admit your model of the world might be incomplete. Meruem begins to experience something new. Not dominance, but curiosity. And curiosity is the first crack in certainty. As Meruem spends more time with Komugi, his identity shifts. He stops defining value purely through strength. He starts recognizing patience, dedication, emotional attachment, and personal meaning. This is important, because identity doesn't change through ideas alone. It changes through attention. Whatever you repeatedly engage in shapes what you consider important. Meruem stops living in a world of conquest, and starts living in a world of connection. And this is where Meruem's story becomes relevant outside of fiction, because most people don't think of themselves as fixed. But in reality, many people do something similar to what Meruem starts with. They build a model of themselves. I'm bad at this, I'm not good at that, I'm just not disciplined. And then they stop questioning it. But Meruem shows something important. The mind is not static. It is responsive to exposure, environment, relationships, challenges, and anything you can think of. In other words, you are not just who you are. You are what you repeatedly experience and choose to understand. If Meruem had stayed in his original environment, he never would have changed. But exposure forces evolution, and the same principle applies to real life. If you only consume one type of thinking, you stay the same. And if you only repeat the same habits, you reinforce the same identity. And if you avoid discomfort, you will not grow. By the end of the story, something ironic happens. The being created as a monster develops empathy, restraint, and emotional depth. Meanwhile, many humans in the story act out of fear, survival, and ideology. So the question flips. Is humanity something you are born with, or something you develop through experience? Meruem suggests it might not be a species, it might be a process. Meruem's story isn't just about a king who changed. It's about what causes change in the first place. Because whether you're talking about a fictional being or a real person, growth doesn't come from power. It comes from contradiction. From encountering something your current self cannot explain, and choosing not to reject it, but to understand it. So maybe the real question isn't, why did Meruem become more human? Maybe it's, what are you refusing to encounter that could change you?